welcome to TENGRIDOME. This is your host, Iggy. And being honest, I have not kept up with MMA lately. Just didn't have the time for it. There's been an important update in regards to the fundraiser drive. And to those who don't know, I am currently fleeing Russia. And I've been on the run for the past 7 months. At this rate, and at some point I've ran out of money, and I needed cash urgently, and we managed to. Well, we started a fundraiser drive, and we managed to raise a respectable sum. It's been doing relatively well, all things considered, and we found an attorney. We found an attorney that will look at my case and come up with a way to present it to the US government in order to get me and my wife a visa. So there's that, and you can read all about it in the fundraiser updates that we've been posting on our website, and some of the updates that have been posted for the patrons on our Patreon. So if you want to know the details of everything that's been happening, just $3. It's at the $3 tier, $3 per month, and you have access to all those and everything else that we released over the years. So, neat bonus, I guess. And this TENGRIDOME is not going to be about MMA, and it's not anything new for TENGRIDOME, to be honest, because I've branched out beyond the scope of just the fights quite often in the past. It's just that lately I've been focusing on week-to-week fight breakdowns because, it's easier. So, how do I broach the subject? Well, I guess not to faff about it too much. Russia declared mobilization, quote-unquote, partial mobilization, and allegedly they only wish to call upon those who have served, have finished service, have military ranks, training, etc., etc. Bullshit. Massive bullshit. All lies. As always, Russia just lies. They do not. They're not planning on settle on 300,000, which is still a staggering number in terms of able-bodied men. They wish to ship off. Recently there's been a leak from the Kremlin, and it's actually upwards of 1 million. Now, whether or not that's possible, it's kind of a moot point because, obviously it's impossible. Even the staunchest warhawks in the Russian among the Russian populace don't want to die. So you get this massive exodus from Russia, a second wave, even larger than the last one that's been going on ever since February 24, which is when the invasion started. And it's now the exodus is now happening across all of Russia, not just from the western parts of the country and some other regions, and sporadically, every once in a while, someone a bunch of people starts leaving. And there's hard to quantify the demographics, and no one's crunched the numbers yet. But my guess is a lot of the people leaving the country early on have been doing so out of political concerns and business concerns due to the sanctions, and now it's just people fearing for their lives, basically. People who do not wish to die. And one important thing, I don't recall if I mentioned it on the podcasts before, but I've been talking about it in the Discord with the Discord supporters, and I've been providing feedback and analysis on everything that's been happening from from a eyes on the ground up perspective. Obviously, I can't provide insight on how the actual fighting is going on. For that you have to rely on open source intelligence mostly, and guys like Perrin, the YouTuber who makes PowerPoints presentations and detailed analysis on the defense economics, defense econ side of things. Highly recommend. Okay, so the mobilization hasn't been even across every region. Like the western parts of the country, yeah, people are scared and they're running, but it's not like people are being forcibly dragged off to war. Like, it's still mostly, it's like they're trying to maintain a veneer of legality to it, you know? And compared to other regions, like frontier regions, the farther east you go, the more brutal the whole process becomes, up to and including press ganging, essentially. Buryatia, my homeland, has as always, has taken the brunt of the mobilization efforts. I don't know. The current thinking goes like the head of the Republic, the head of the Republic, Alexei Tsedenov, who's been appointed by Putin, tries to, show that he's loyal, show his loyalty, and maybe he's hoping for promotion somewhere down the line. But yeah, long story short, the guy is an ethnic Buryat Mongol, same as me and same as everyone else, same as half the populace of Buryatia, and he's kind of like giving us up on a platter. And it's not just concentrated in Buryatia as well. It's like it's happening in places like Tuva, which is populated by culturally Mongolic but ethnically Turkic people. That's still considered Mongolic due to the extremely close cultural ties. It's been happening in Altai, also populated by indigenous Siberian Turkic peoples. Sakha Republic, also known as Yakutia. That place also populated by predominantly Turkic people and with a distinctly Tungusic cultural roots. People from villages being just the military commissariat patrols, the police patrols, Rosgvardia patrols, Rosgvardia or Rosguard patrols, like they keep going house to house, getting their hands on every able-bodied man in the village and dragging them off to buses. Same picture in the cities as well, going house to house, banging on the doors. If you respond, they just barge into your house and they hand off the military commissariat notice. And if the police are present, if the police officer is present, you're essentially press ganged. You are essentially Shanghaied, press ganged into service. That's what's been happening. Yeah. So, where the fuck do I even begin? Jesus. Okay, so to start, I guess I'll just start at the beginning. So before the war, I've started getting reports of military movements near the border, near the Ukrainian border, and hacks started sharing open source intelligence with me, showing the maps and such. And I was like, I looked at the order of battle, and the order of battle for the alleged military maneuvers, a training exercise that's going to happen near the Ukrainian border. And I was like, oh fuck, yeah, they're going to invade. And I was like, fuck me. And I opened a USD account and started gathering money. At first it was maybe $250. I don't know. And yeah, so I looked at this, kept looking at the situation, updating everyone. And then when the invasion started, I was like, oh fuck, yeah, I'm grabbing my girlfriend, we're getting out, fuck this. And thanks to the thanks to the extremely generous donations from my colleagues and some of my patrons, and that was when the ground borders with most with most everyone were closed, and the nearest spot where we could flee was Mongolia. But since the ground border was closed, we couldn't take the bus as we would usually do. So we had to fly there, and the ticket prices were just fucking insane, like $700. All in all, it's just for 60 minutes worth in the air. It's just insane. Yeah, I gathered all our documents, gathered all our stuff, and just bailed. And over there, we just first we tried to gather our bearings, and the first thing that we needed to do is get vaccinated with WHO approved vaccines, because Sputnik isn't recognized by any real country as a real vaccine, except maybe Australia. So, and the problem was that I received my second Sputnik dose like a week before I had to leave. So we found a clinic, we got the shots. My girlfriend had a pretty bad reaction, but I had to take the fucking ice bath because it's got so bad. And then we started gathering information. It seemed that things were relatively quiet back home, but the sanctions meant that we couldn't receive any more donations until we find a way to receive that money, because Russian banks would just stop working. So we cashed out, and we lived on those cash reserves for like several months, and we kept hopping back and forth between Mongolia and Buryatia, partially because in Mongolia it's just we had access in Mongolia to stuff, to information, to places like visa centers, embassies, that kind of stuff. Got married in the meantime, and then we settled we settled on a plan. We wanted to go to South Korea, but they allowed my now wife, entry to South Korea, but didn't give me didn't allow me entry to South Korea. So like, for some reason, I don't know, even though we were legally married by then, I don't know, fucking, it was some bullshit. So my wife went to South Korea to make some money, and in the meantime I headed to Georgia, and that's where we are now. My wife is we're going to reunite pretty soon, and in the meantime I'm just working with the attorneys, and that's basically like the long and short of it. Like for several months, that's what our life has been. We've been hopping from place to place, gathering documents, gathering info, and just keeping our ear to the ground in terms of recent developments. And so now the most recent development means that a whole bunch of even more people are going to die. And this is one of those occurrences. This is one of those occurrences where I would love to be horrendously wrong in regards to how the whole thing is going to go. Because at the beginning of the war, I said that basically, in order to, the best case scenario geopolitically for the world is to basically destroy Russia economically, force everyone to leave. And for the Ukrainians to kill as many Russian soldiers, to stand and fucking fight to the death, and force a stalemate, and then as the support keeps pouring on, perhaps they may go on the offensive themselves, and that's what happened. If you want proof, just join the Discord. You may find all my posts from February 24 in there. Fucking hell. If that's... oh my god. On one hand, from an analytical... it's weird. From an analytical standpoint, I understand what needs to happen. But when you, you lose that... When you zoom out, that's how the world looks. Okay, Ukrainians are doing well, Russia is fucked, everything's great. And then And then, I go back down, and then I realize I still have a fucking Russian passport. So everything that happens to Russia still, has to do with me. And a disproportionate amount of casualties on the front line. A lot of them are from my region. A lot of them are my compatriots. And they were forced there. To explain why so many people from poor regions go to the military, because that's the only means of social mobility available to them. The way that Russia has exploited those regions for hundreds of years has left them in this decaying state, a state of continuous, unending decay, if that makes any sense. There's fuck all to do, fuck all career opportunities, and the only thing that pays well is the military or the Rosguard or the police. So people go there. What the fuck else are you gonna do? I'm the lucky one. I'm one of the very few people who have been able to find some kind of career opportunity with my skills, with the actual skills that I have. In a lot of cases, guys from Buryatia will get the diploma, get the bachelor's degree, and then what are they gonna do? Most of my friends have higher education, but they can't find any jobs. There's none. And without money, you can't relocate, because Russia kind of artificially limits mobility within the country as well, because plane tickets are expensive. Traveling by train is relatively cheap, but it takes a fucking long ass time, and when you arrive, rent is prohibitively expensive. And to provide some kind of a reference point, I make $400 per month, and by Russian standards, that's very good. By the standards of my region, at the very least. And rent in most places, if you wish to have a normal, well-equipped apartment, that's also $400 per month. The most annoying thing, however, has been throughout all these months was hearing the hot takes from all sides. The way it just one thing that's evident is that people from the Western world across the world have no fucking idea how Russia works. Many of them didn't even know that my people exist or any other minorities that live in Russia. To them, a Russian is a guy wearing a woolly hat with flappy ears, drinking vodka, and he's predominantly white, almost always white. And all the hot takes that I've been hearing is fucking, even from presumably well-educated, well-informed Western observers, is the reason why Russia is dictatorial is from the Asiatic barbarian past of the Russian Federation. If, in case you didn't know, the Russians used to be, it used to be that all the Mongols, they came from the east, the hordes from the east came and raped everyone, and that's why the Russians are so barbaric and prone to barbarism, and they support dictatorships. That's the type of commentary I've had to hear. I don't think I have to point out why that sort of commentary, well, first of all, Russia, the Mongol Empire existed 800 fucking years ago. The Russians had plenty of time to figure this shit out for themselves. Second of all, that's fucking racist is what it is. Come on. Jesus. And then there's the Russians themselves, the Russian liberals, they leave the country shortly after the invasion starts. They run everywhere, and when reports of war crimes start coming in, what do I hear? Oh, the Russians, it's not the Russians doing all those things, it's the Mongols. The evil Mongols, the Asiatic barbarians from the East. It's in their blood, it's in their culture to be that way. What do you expect? They're poor and uneducated back there. They live in mud huts. Don't touch us. Give us visas. Prosecute them. Prosecute the yellow-ass, narrow-eyed fucking orcs. Fucking orcs that are raping and pillaging. And like these orcs that have like came flooding into Ukraine, destroying everything. It's in their genes. Motherfucker, like people from Moscow who haven't had to work a day in their fucking life because they have like they own seven apartments in the city center and make passive income off that. Landowners, that's what they are, and they basically like they have had money. They've had enough money to flee Russia, and that's what they're saying now about people who have no means of leaving the country and no means of dodging the draft or like protesting in any way, because look at what happened to Chechnya. And people like foreign observers talking about how come none of them are protesting. It's like they don't like freedom or something. Like motherfucker, you go ahead and protest. Come on, just imagine you're a Russian citizen. Like the Russian police regularly torture and beat anyone they detain. They get filmed in public beating people, and it does nothing. People are left crippled after 24 hours in police custody. That's what happens. The Rosguard has a right to shoot into crowds. That's a real law. So, yeah, go ahead and do it. I mean, obviously, like standing up for yourself and making yourself heard, like the way that the people in Iran are currently doing, it's incredibly brave, knowing that you will very likely die. But is that like? It's like all those comments, like the Russians have the Russian citizenry, including the minorities of which I'm not aware of, have made their bed, and now they have to lay in it. Before we accept any refugees, they should have if they wanted to be accepted as refugees, they should have shown their willingness to stand up for themselves. Like it's like in order to prove that you love freedom, you should die. Just yeah, we'll gladly let you in if you get shot by armed policemen, by going out with a makeshift banner saying that Putin is a dickhead. Jesus, this is what the whole episode is going to be. Is just me airing grievances, I guess. Where the fuck was I? Oh my god. Just all sorts of asinine commentary from all sides, coming from all sides, and like the fight side is the only platform available to me to talk about this stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if the fight side subscribers are actually like one of the more informed people when it comes to the whole situation compared to your average Westerner or American or European, like or whatever. The one good thing that I've observed, at least, is that now that there's a massive exodus of Buryat Mongols from Buryatia, the Khalkha Mongols, the Mongol Mongols from Mongolia, the country, the independent country, they've reacted with well, they showed a willingness to accept everyone, and there's been reports of Mongolians letting fleeing Russian citizens and Buryats to hop into the car, and they took them across the border. And right now, the Khural, which is the ruling, which is the governing, which is the parliament, the Mongolian parliament, currently trying to figure out a solution for this influx, I don't know, figure something out. Maybe some changes in legislation to extend, to hand out emergency visas, something like that. Because there's no repatriation program for the Mongols from other regions. Like, I don't know, it's probably like the causes are always political, naturally, because if you were born in an ethnic republic like Buryatia, you're still a Russian citizen by all rights, except you're not treated like one. Like on paper, you have all these rights, and you are subject to all these international sanctions and rules and all other types of regulation that are pertinent to any other Russian citizen, except ethnic Russians don't treat you like you're Russian. The Russian government doesn't treat you like you're Russian. I mean, the Russian government doesn't treat ethnic Russians all that well either. And yeah, the Russian government could go, oh, how come you're offering these like privileges to one subset of Russian citizenry and not everyone else? That's discrimination. So yeah, they were kind of wary about starting any repatriation programs for like the Kalmyks, Halmyk people, and for the Tuans, and yeah, it's a mess. It's a giant mess. But I don't know. Maybe at the very least, this has galvanized massively depressed people with a massively depressed culture and a language that's been nearly driven to extinction, the overall culture that's been nearly driven to extinction, to kind of like rally behind like the idea that we don't want to be cannon fodder anymore. Because when we come to Moscow or St. Petersburg or any other predominantly Russian city, not necessarily even in western parts of the country or a big city, like places like Novosibirsk, Irkutsk, Omsk, Tomsk, and Novgorod, etc., etc. When we wish to rent an apartment, we're fucking chinks, you know, fucking yellow monkeys. We're not handing out our property to any of you fucking mongrel barbarians that live in shit and smell like shit and look like shit, etc. But when we have to go to war, we're all Russians, and it's our duty as Russians to take up arms against the enemies of the state. Lovely, just lovely stuff. Like, to just, I don't know, for perspective, the indigenous peoples that live on the territory of Russia, I would compare their situation to, let's say, Native Americans. Honestly, I don't know how else to describe it, because a lot of, especially the northern peoples, the Tungusic peoples, the Samoyedic peoples, they're just there's fuck all left in regards to their culture and language and customs and population even. If you travel to the Yamalo-Nenetsky Okrug, and if you're a Canadian listener, you will understand this. Like, compare it to some place like, for example, Nunavut. Exactly the same situation. Maybe better in some cases and worse in some others. Like, roughly the same thing. So yeah, shit's grim. And I think what's been evident, like a clear that like the whole thing, it showed a clear misunderstanding, like inability to grasp that imperialism and colonialism can be different. It has types and can vary. Because a lot of tankies, they seem to believe that only Western powers can be like colonial or imperialist. And because America bad, because America am bad, and Russia opposes America, it means that Russia is good. Which is just this is like, what is this? This is baby brain shit. Like literal goo goo gaga fucking bullshit. If you read the history of the Russian Empire, like I don't know. I guess the only reason why nobody like considers Russia to be a colonial empire is because it's all one continuous landmass, and it doesn't like the thought doesn't visit people. Like the thought, like they don't think that maybe across all this land, this enormous fucking like half a continent, there may be some other people living in there, and they may not have wanted to be parts of Russia before the Russians came. Then go, oh, okay, like yeah, we'll hop on board, become a second-class citizen. Let you have all our natural resources. Let you treat our women like shit and kill our men. Yeah, why not? Fuck it. Sounds awesome. That's what happened, I guess. And that's how the Russian history books teach it. That's how they present the whole thing. When we were taught the history of Buryatia in schools, they would say like, oh, the word Buryat comes from the word brat, which means brother, and you're our brothers. And when we came, the heavily armed Cossacks came to Buryatia. They looked at the Buryat people and they went, "Oh, they're our brothers. Want to live together?" And the Buryat people went like collectively shrugged and went like, "Okay." This is what's being taught in schools. I'm not joking. And used to be that the Buryat language was taught in schools, and now it's been suppressed. And the ethnic Russians living on the territory of Buryatia, they always deny that there's racism there because I mean, like, it's the typical old thing of like, stop saying there's racism. Racism only exists because you brought it up, and it's not because I am refusing to acknowledge my transgressions and my behavior and look at what I'm doing. Like, acknowledge that perhaps the way that I treat minorities is disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. Because, oh, it's jokes! And there's always like these people from that are also a member of a minority, but because they wish to fit in so much, they start, legitimately doing Uncle Tom shit. Like, yeah, I have cunt eyes. I'm cunty-eyed. Vietnamese. Welcome to the rice fields. That kind of crap. And this is just an example of a damaged national psyche, damaged national pride. Like, through years and years and years of subjugation and oppression, this is how people start behaving because, they don't want to be abused, singled out, and made fun of and punished for rocking the boat. That's the reality of it. Well, yeah, since we're on the subject of Russia as a colonial power, and people asking like, why don't you rebel? Have you heard of something have you perhaps heard of something called the Chechen Wars? And what the Russians have done to the Chechens during those wars? And how many Chechens were killed? And how the Chechens were demonized as evil terrorists for decades to come after that? That's the reason why. Like, consider this. If Russia is ready to wage a war of aggression against the people they always talk about as being a sister people, the Ukraine, like, this is the idea of Velika Ross, aka the Great Russian. And it's something that was born during the Imperial Russian days, where Russia would always involve itself in the matters of the Balkan states, Crimean War, World War One, all those like conflicts between great empires. The way it's positioned itself always is that we are the greatest Slavic people on earth, and it's our duty to protect the smaller Slavic peoples. And it's kind of an extension of that. They basically deny autonomy to the Ukrainians. Like, the Ukrainians are essentially confused Russians. And the Ukrainian language is a wacky dialect of Russian. Even though Russian is the wacky dialect of Slavic language. Amongst all Slavic languages, Russian is the wackiest one, with the most loan words, the most the biggest amount of borrowed stuff and dropped like verbs and tenses and all that good stuff. Like, consider this: up until the Napoleonic Wars, the entire Russian court only spoke French, and then German afterwards. So there's this idea of the Great Russian that protects all the other small Russians, and Ukraine and Belarusia and Bulgaria and all those nearby regions were considered to be Malorussia. Russia itself was the central Russia, the Russia around Moscow, and the Russia past the Ural Mountains, Siberia. It was called Velika Russia, the Great Russia, and all those other bits in the eyes of the empire were Malorussia, aka the small Russia. So, if look at the atrocities committed against the Ukrainians during the war, and compare that to what Russia has done to the Chechens in the two Chechen wars. What's happened to their capital, Grozny, leveled to the fucking ground, destroyed almost as badly or even worse than Berlin in 1945. So take all that into account and think what the Kremlin is going to do to any other republic that decides to secede from Russia. And consider the fact that what Russia is currently doing is like they're killing two birds with one stone. They're trying to kill at least, only succeeding in one. Only succeeding in killing one. They wanted to subjugate Ukraine and kill off non-Slavic minorities living on the territory of Russia. And it's not a conspiracy theory. Just if you look at the statistics, and you can look them up on sources like, you can look at open source intelligence numbers per region, the casualties per region, and you can look at the statistics from Free Buryatia Foundation, like Sakha Against War, or Asians of Russia, and they've been concerning themselves with doing like a head count of all the casualties and the amount of able-bodied men carried off to war from those regions and the ethnic makeup of those people. What's doubly annoying about the war crime accusations and the Mongolic barbarity bullshit is that obviously the majority of all combat troops in Ukraine are still ethnically Russian. But what the observers are doing, they're basically doing this fucking... It's almost like... God, it's almost like the 13 or like 12% crap that the white supremacists in America say. Oh, 50% of all crimes committed by 12% of the population. That kind of crap. This is what it is. So yeah. Minorities are being killed off and blamed for all the atrocities specifically by the Russian side to kind of like wash their hands off all the war crimes. The racists on the other side gladly eat it up, going as far as to say that, oh, our cause is just because Russia is not a Slavic state. They're actually a continuation of the barbaric Mongol Empire that's going to destroy us all. Russia's Mordor, and everyone in there is an Asiatic barbarian, and we're going to protect Western traditional values and that kind of stuff. And eerily similar to what Hitler has been saying about the USSR, by the way, in his speeches to the Wehrmacht during the Second World War, when the Eastern Front was opened. Just exact same shit, word for word. It's insane. The Russians themselves are saying that. The Kremlin itself is talking about, like, they're using Nazi rhetoric to talk about Ukraine while calling the Ukraine Nazis. And then on the western side of the border, foreign conservative foreign observers and the good Russian liberals, quote unquote, using Nazi rhetoric to explain why Russia is committing war crime, while calling Russians Nazis. It's so crazy. It's just it's just hit me. Honestly, haven't put it all together until I spelled it out. Jesus Christ, God. Oh my God. Yeah, it's just a mess. The whole thing is a mess. In order to explain the whole conflict, and in order to explain why Russia is behaving the way it does, you have to go so far back. And there honestly should be, and there probably is, a faculty or maybe an institute of Russian studies overseas, because otherwise it genuinely explaining all this requires someone who would specialize in it, and especially for the eastern part of the country, because everything past the Ural Mountains is different. It's like there's a huge cultural divide between Western Russians and not Eastern Russians, but rather frontier Russians, and there's a further divide between all those Russians and the population, the indigenous population of the ethnic republics, and oblasts and okrugs and other places. So, for example, Buryatia. Okay, so Buryatia is historically part of Mongolia, or has been, up until 1700s. And during the Treaty of Kyakhta, Mongolia, at that point, has been subjugated by the Qin Empire. And it used to be subject to the Qin Empire. And the Qin Empire came after the Yuan Empire. The Yuan Empire fell apart, and it left Northern Yuan and the four Oirats, and it's a whole history lesson in itself. It's just thousands and thousands of fucking years of history in that region. So yeah, the Qin Empire came, subjugated Mongolia, and the Russian Empire started like feuding with the Qin Empire for the Russian Far East, for what is now the Russian Far East. And they decided on a treaty that the territories up north would become Russian, and the Qin Empire will get to keep Mongolia and the southern side of what is the Far East. That's how all those regions came under Russian rule. Russia kept pushing east and kept pushing north, subjugating more and more territories. And yeah. So, and to give you some context, like the territory of Buryatia has been populated by nomads since prehistory. The earliest signs of civilization that could be found are in 300, 200 fucking BCE, and like you know, like it was used to be part of the Xiongnu Empire, and the Xiongnu are the Huns, the ancestors of the Huns that came west and terrorized the Roman Empire. That's how far the history goes. And then there were the Rouran Khaganate, and then came the Mongol Empire, then came the Northern Yuan. Yeah. So yeah, the border between Buryatia and Mongolia became established as a trading point between Russia and the Qin Empire. And then when the communists and we kind of existed as a the Russian Empire kind of let us do our own thing, even though there have been attempts the subjugation of the Buryat people has not been peaceful. People have been killed, women have been stolen and raped, other people have been forcefully Christianized under threat of death, and then it only stopped. It was kind of like a military colony. The Cossacks lived on the territory of Buryatia. They established a fortress and kind of did whatever they wanted to do. And then the Buryat people, having had enough, walked all the way to St. Petersburg, which was the capital of the Russian Empire back then. And to give you a sense of scope, that's 6,000 kilometers going from Ulan-Ude, which is the capital of the modern capital of Buryatia, to St. Petersburg. So the delegation came to Tsar Emperor, the former Tsar, now Emperor, Peter the Great, Peter the First, and they explained everything that's been happening to them, and that's when it's kind of a new order has been established, and they kind of we were kind of left to our own devices. And then during the Soviet years, obviously we still lived like second-class citizens. It was like it's like any other colonial empire. We were like the natives, the barbaric natives, and there were the civilized Russians living there. And then during the Soviet days, there were there started a great big push towards Russifying all the indigenous peoples and everywhere else that had a Soviet influence. Speaking the Buryat language has become discouraged. The language started dying, and it was the birth of the Homo Sovieticus, the Soviet man. Having any cultural hang-ups was a sign of barbarity and unacceptance of communism. It's just a massive, massive subject. I'm just brushing over so many things. So when the Soviet Union dissolved, So the Buryat ASSR declared its sovereignty in 1990 and adopted the name Republic of Buryatia, and it kind of remained an autonomous republic within the Russian Federation. And there was lots of turmoil back then. It was like the Soviet Union was falling apart, and in 1995, Buryatia signed a power-sharing agreement with the federal government, which kind of reinforced the autonomy. But effectively, we were still part of Russia. It's just that there were kind of like things were looking up in the sense that people thought that, yeah, maybe now is the time to start reviving our culture and everything. But in 2002, the agreement was abolished. And the heads of the republic started being the heads of the republic have been predominantly Russian from that point on. And then Putin appointed, he was not elected, he appointed the head of the republic, the new head of the republic, Alexei Tsadenov, who is an ethnic Buryat, but has never been to Buryatia before, doesn't speak a word of Buryat, and is extremely loyal to Kremlin, which is evident in how he treats his own people, you know? Hilariously, the chairman of the Buryat Khural is ethnically Russian, although he speaks the Buryat language fluently. It's just this is like the ridiculous irony of it all. Oh, Jesus. I mean, it's not like it's not like we were the punching bag, Russia's punching bag all this time. There were like remarkable people in our history. There were like the modern independent Mongolia during the early communist days. The whole every institution, like legislative, executive, and governing body in Mongolia of the day has been founded by ethnic Buryat people. That's Buryat scholars that were educated in Russian universities. It's just that the problem was they kind of like they embraced this idea of becoming cosmopolitan and modernizing too hard. They were too uncompromising in the way that they tried to reform the Mongolia of the day. And but they were extremely successful nonetheless. It's just that it kind of, up until a certain point, up until the 40s, I think, or the 30s, every single major public figure in Mongolian history, in Mongolian governance, has been Buryat Mongolian, and kind of like created a divide, a class divide, ironically, between Buryat Mongols and Khalkha Mongols, which is kind of funny because I mean, obviously they wanted to build communism and they created a class divide, you know. But yeah, and the foreign minister of the day, who was an ethnic Kazakh, he was a staunch ideologue. He was an ascriber to the idea. He ascribed to the idea of the Homo Sovieticus wholeheartedly, and Stalin exploited that. And he was also very wary of any pan-Mongolist sentiment. So all those people have been purged, and thus died the idea of a unified, like reunified Mongolia, I guess. It's yeah, there's so much history there. I honestly could go on for ages, and if I could get my hands on any like first-hand sources and do some brush up my memory, I could turn it into a legitimate series, maybe on Patreon. I don't know. People have been clamoring for it for a long time now. No, well, not everyone, but just there were a couple subscribers who expressed interest in it. This is kind of... I mean, Russia is like an empire in every sense of the word. It's like it comes, it sucks out all the juices out of the region, leaves behind some infrastructure, as one does, because how else you would extract resources, but not too much, and and then leaves turmoil in its wake. It's just that the difference, I guess, between some of the Western imperialist powers and Russian imperialism is that the institutions were different. It's like I bang this drum all the time. It's like, why nations fail? Why companies fail? Why does everything happen? Institutions. There's extractive institutions and there's inclusive institutions. And extractive institutions is exactly what Russia was and is. It sucks out and gives out most of the stuff to the majority. I mean, it's not like the Western imperialist countries don't do that or didn't do that. It's just that the professed idea of democratization and rule of law, it's still a powerful enough idea that it leaves avenues for progress and economic growth, and it leaves people with the ability to voice dissent without being like suppressed immediately. It can get suppressed indirectly. There's still some violence, but it's not as blatant or brazen as what's happening in Russia, as what Russia does or China does these days. There's a difference there. It's like the sheer idea of it, the sheer idea of democracy it's like it's powerful enough that it still leads to good outcomes sometimes. not a glowing endorsement, but it's a lot better. It's still better than what we have, what us Russian and Chinese citizens have. The one concern I have is that what happens next? Okay, so Ukraine wins the war. The Russian government is toppled. Russia is destroyed as a military and economic entity. What happens next? Like, I mean, nature abhors a vacuum. If the issue I have with the idea of completely destroying Russia and everyone seceding from Russia is that there's still possibility for federalism in Russia. If the federations regain their autonomy, and it leads to the creation of a genuine pluralistic Russia that serves a common goal, that means China can't move up north. That's the thing. China has been moving up north for a while now. They're exerting soft power. They're setting up businesses. They're cooperating in terms of business, and in certain, sometimes they even set up production. A patron asked me the other day, like, what even is north? Like, it's all snow. No, you see, Siberia is Russia's mining colony. We have a wealth of natural resources: coal, precious metals, conductors, semiconductors, oil, gas. I mean, there's the Siberian volcanic traps that also produce a lot of stuff. There's diamond mines up north. The forest, the fucking Siberian taiga, which is like the second lung of the earth, to complement the Amazon rainforests. There's also that. The boreal forests of Siberia. Lots of stuff up north. And given that China is hell-bent on growing its industry and polluting the environment ever more, all those perishables, all those raw resources, they would serve their purposes very well, and they will probably not invade, but they'll probably just, if all the republics secede, and it's a long shot, but let's say there's a power vacuum left, and or, for example, a new government comes, but it's severely weakened and it needs investment. If China provides investment, they'll take it. And if China just builds businesses everywhere, they don't need to fucking try and conquer anything. It's already theirs. And Russia becomes a colony. It becomes a corporate colony for China. It's like, I think we talked about this the other day in regards to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in how the current government is trying to set up mining operations and stuff and drilling operations in nature preserves. The West is hypocritical, and they build their wealth on the backs of they've built their wealth by destroying the environment. How come we can't destroy our own environment in order to become as wealthy as the West? And the thing here is, on the surface, this seems like a real grievance, like something justifiable, but in practice, it's just an excuse for kleptocrats, for authoritarian kleptocrats, to become rich, to enrich themselves at the expense of everyone else. Because they're selling the rights to drill all this stuff to foreign corporations that just start drilling there without any regulations, because the local legislation allows them to do so. And the government receives a nice profit from that. Profit that never never makes its way to the hands of the common people. Trickle-down economics, my ass. If you still believe in trickle-down economics in 2022, I got a bridge to sell to you. And the reason why this happens? Do you want me to tap the sign? Institutions! It all comes down to institutions in the end. It's extractive versus inclusive. It's just, every single fucking time, it always happens. The only solutions to that are democratization, transparency, and introduction of real pluralism. And one way of preserving the quote-unquote crumbling Western civilization is just make immigration easier. Make it easier. If not open borders, at least make visaless entry possible. I mean, come on. I mean, obviously, I stand to benefit from that sort of legislation very much, but just check out, for example, Alex Novreste, Iranian last name. It's Nowst. Fuck. I'm so bad at spelling out stuff. It's just not something you do in Russian. I'm sorry. So, Nowstateh. Fuck. Come on. Hang on. Hang on. Let me Google his name. I'm sorry. Alex, I'm sincerely sorry. I'm trying to plug you. Norwrasteh. Norwrasteh. Fuck it, close enough. So yeah, he's a huge advocate for immigration. He's an analyst, and sadly, the only place that could hire him is the fucking Cato Institute, which fucking sucks. It's a fucking libertarian think tank. It's bullshit, but the guy himself is very legit. He's an economist, and he like provides evidence, provides studies, and that prove how immigration preserves democracies and plurality, and just leads to economic growth. Immigrants were compelled by the sheer fact of wanting to come to your country and work to be productive. I mean, that's how it fucking works. And immigration doesn't lead to like people taking up jobs. It leads to job creation, because immigrants also start businesses all over the place. Jesus. Yeah, this is becoming very rambly. I'm just talking about all the topics that kind of like piss me off. I guess I kind of wanted to fill you guys in as to what's happening. Maybe explain my situation more in depth. Ended up yammering about a bunch of topics. I don't know if there's been some interesting stuff that I mentioned that you want me to elaborate upon. Leave a comment or contact me on Discord, and maybe I'll make more. There's not much in terms of MMA to talk about, at least not in terms of stuff that's interested me. So I'll mostly focus on these broad spectrum topics. Maybe I'll even figure out how to tie all this to MMA. Actually, in fact, global economic and political stability helps sports and democratic institutions, inclusive democratic institutions, state-funded programs cause more athletes to come into the sport and try it out, because economic stability dictates that they have the means to try it out. They can train, they can pay for training, they can people just can't try stuff because they want to. There you go. And if Russia wasn't such a shithole, we might see even more athletes come into the sport, because so many people, like for every person that makes it out of the trenches, so to speak, there's hundreds more that are drowned in it. There's hundreds more that are drowned in the trenches. Yeah, see, I can check out these bullshitting skills. I can finagle my way out of anything. Here's hoping I can finagle my way out of fucking off the fucking continent and settle somewhere else. Anyway, if you like this, I guess, what is this? What do you even call this? If you like this collection of rants and you'd like to hear more, subscribe to our Patreon. And there's been a recent Patreon rework. If you haven't been subscribed to us, it's no big deal. Just read up on the tiers. It's still a work in progress. Some of the benefits will get shuffled around. Some will become cheaper. Some will get pricier. But so far, what you see is what you get. Those who don't know, we got rid of all the higher tiers because no one fucking subscribed to them, and it offered stuff like videos and articles, and I've talked about this before. It's bullshit. We can't handle that kind of workload. It's impossible. We'll move all that to a Ko-Fi account, which is yet to be set up, but it'll have commission info, and you'll be able to commission articles and podcasts and videos. But so far on the Patreon, what you'll get is exclusive podcasts, alternate commentary, behind the scenes stuff. Sometimes after we record, we hold long conversations about whatever the fuck it can be, us nerding out over technique, sharing training stories, maybe discussing some topics that's kind of tangentially related to what was discussed on the podcast, but it was kind of like extraneous or was just too much. That's the stuff you'll get. Also Q&As, and you'll be able to vote on to kind of like to offer us feedback on what you'd like to see, or maybe stuff you'd like to see changed up, or just tell us that we should keep going as we keep doing what we're doing. Obviously, again, I have to ask you guys to read up on the fundraiser updates and look up my Ko-Fi, where I'm currently receiving donations to be able to pay for the freaking attorney services and immigrate once if we achieve success with the attorneys and my petition gets accepted. Anyway, stay tuned for more, I guess. If the situation develops, I'll try to provide more info. There's also, I mean, I've recorded a podcast, but I'm kind of like not quite satisfied with it. It's has to do with the history of Russian colonialism, and I tried to explain it in depth, but it actually needs a plan. Maybe I'll release it, maybe I won't, but like as a bonus, with a disclaimer that it's also very rambly and kind of incoherent. But at least in this one, I kind of warned you that it's going to be just a bunch of bullshit. Okay. Dan Albert has released an article on Yo Romero. Like, Yo Romero frequently gets reduced to this kind of like brutish explosion man. And there's actually subtle craft to his style, and Dan Albert has attempted to explain it, and he's done a good job of it, I think. Up on our website, check it out. Beyond that, the Forbidden Technique podcast on the Fight Side Podcast Network comes out every week, covers all the cards. Recently, they covered... they thought that there's going to be an event this week, the IUC card, so they covered it, but it's actually next week. So go ahead and listen to that. You may find it on any audio platform of your choosing, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, I don't know, fucking Podchaser, Podtail, Podsucker, whatever. Search for the Fight Side Podcast Network. Also, if you're on PC and would not don't want to subscribe to Spotify and all that other crap, just find us on Simplecast. That's where we upload all our shit as well. And stay tuned for the Patreon updates. And maybe there's I think Ben Cohn has a panel in the works, and maybe a couple of interviews as well. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. We're still working, even though life happens, life gets in the way. Anyway, gotta head out. This has been TENGRIDOME, the sort of me bringing you up to speed episode. Stay tuned for more. Cheers.